I intend again tonight to use some of the questions from the people here. But before I get to the questions, I want to point out a few things, if possible. Do you realize that everyone in life, including you at line level, you still have voices that talk about ideas, theories, but the whole world is full of people continually commenting aloud and commenting to themselves about certain ideas. And along with that, they continually express feelings about the ideas. And as you might suspect, even before I pointed out to you, the vast majority are feelings of displeasure. Along these lines, that someone says, I have read and heard enough, that to me there's no doubt that there is a real substance to the idea of reincarnation, but it makes me very uneasy. Or someone can say, I have read, seen, thought about enough that I'm certain that there is some reality to the notion of predestination. I'm just sure of it, but I don't like that. Now, it goes unnoticed. But any idea, now within that include everything, any notion, any theory, even if it's presented as fact, any idea that a person does not like, they do not understand. And this, we have an accident here with some of the recording equipment. A small timeout. Do not adjust your sets. We're back in business. There is a great deal that a person can get from this, not just me pointing out something that you put in one sentence and then you thinking that it is humorous or insightful. Is that the yellow circuit, to pick out just one area of humanity, the yellow circuit landscape is absolutely littered for 5,000 years, right up until today, still alive within you. Still the same kind of things that were going on 5,000 years ago. Some of those same ones are still in people's nervous systems, such as karma, predestination. Or I'm sure there's a God somewhere and he's judging us. I mean, there's no doubt. I feel it. I mean, I just know that. Any intelligent person knows that. But I just don't like it. I'm not easy. I have problems with the idea that he's put us all here and he said, all right, you got free will, and then he threw all these obstacles in our way, etc. No one notices that there is tied in to this whole transfer of energy within one person and in between people, that it is tied into itself, that if there is the least uneasiness, the least displeasure, the least doubt about the idea, even if your circuit and your tongue says, I have no doubt as to the validity of reincarnation, and then you do have some doubt. I'm just picking out several words. Throw it under some displeasure, some uneasiness. So here's what you're left with. You can say, since I've been calling this of late just this, T-H-I-S, you might now, if you had the occasion, tell someone or yourself that what would I have done had I not found this? This is it. This is what I was looking for, whether anybody else finds it to be as meaningful as I did. This is it. And as far as I can tell, he has never made a false step. He's never said anything that ever struck me, even if I couldn't understand it, never struck me that it was incorrect. And yet, back to the one-liner you can put on this, is any idea that causes you any uneasiness, or that you don't like in any way, count on this. It is a mathematical, it is truly a subatomic fact in the world of mathematics. You do not understand it, you or anyone else, and this has never been recognized. It is an accepted part of everyday existence, historical existence, that you and other intelligent people can be persuaded as to the validity of some idea. Or to you it can be self-evident that I know that there is a God somewhere outside this system that set it all in motion, and now he's sort of letting us run wild, but we're going to pay for it. I just feel it. I know it. If there is one molecule in you that doesn't like that, you don't understand it. Not partially. You simply don't understand it. This may not hit a lot of you right here on the surface tonight, but I'm telling you, encouraging you to pursue this on your own, because you are surrounded externally and internally by this. That you can accept an idea as being unconditionally, indisputably true, and in some way not fully appreciate it, not fully be in tune with it, but that you can do both, and you cannot. And it shouldn't take some of you over 2 or 3 minutes for this to strike you that I am correct yet again. Sad to say it. Then, what should strike you as curious or interesting, I'll go ahead and tell you what it is every idea that's in common currency falls in this category. There is not one, speaking just in the ordinary level, not some extreme somewhere that you can find out on a street corner, but within the bell curve of the general run of ordinary humanity, you will not find anyone / any idea. And to have an idea, of course, someone has to be proclaiming it. Someone has to be passing the currents of this idea about. You will not find one idea, one notion, one theory, one fact that you can find a person who is totally comfortable with it. All the way from popes to rabbis to your mother, your father. You cannot find anyone who will say, I know so-and-so is true. Right now, we'll just forget where they think they got it, whether it was from divine revelation or from a book or from their college education, from their parents, from common knowledge, but that someone, including you at line level consciousness, says such and such is true. Everyone knows this is true. Any reasonable person knows this is true. But damn, it's kind of a shame it is, isn't it? Because I don't fully, and maybe the gods or the forces know what they're doing, but I don't fully find myself comfortable with this, although it's obviously true. It is not true for the person that can say, I absolutely believe in reincarnation. I mean, it's no doubt. I believe in it, that's it. It's a fact. Whether you agree with me or not, it's a fact. But goddamn, the more you think about it, I mean, if you sit down and really think about this, you know, parts of it, it's just not fair. Parts of it don't really make sense. For that person that said that, reincarnation, the reality, if there is any behind the word and the idea, is not true. Whatever the idea is, if you're not totally comfortable with it, it is not true. If any of you contemporaneously to me telling this or following any of it a little further, assuming you see this at some time in the future, you are left with this, that nothing is true in the ordinary world. Since I haven't reminded you in some months, I am not simply playing with words, although I know at times it sounds like it. But any idea that a person can express, if they are not totally, every molecule, every possible change in their molecular structure, if every molecule in their body is not joining in saying, yes, we believe in so-and-so, then they do not understand it, and for them it is not true. And to get into just the next stage of a triaxial reality, compared to that, no one knows anything that's true. Things seep into the binary level enough that all of this keeps moving and growing. But once you see that it is a mathematical fact that you or anyone at ordinary level cannot simultaneously approve or proclaim your belief in any idea, I don't care what it is, and then have any reservations about it. Just personal, I don't really like this. It's true, but I'm kind of uneasy. It is not true for you. I don't care what your background. I don't care whether it's someone who has a PhD in theology, the world's leading expert on the Bible, let us say, the world's greatest speaking exponent of Christianity or Judaism, and they just state absolutely that such and such is true about the gods and what the gods told us and what we should be doing in the Ten Commandments, whatever it is, with the widest possible audience, speaking and apparently the most forceful. I assure you, they do not completely believe it all. That is not the way that they would necessarily say it. That's why I was playing around and giving you several possibilities. If you set them down and got a couple of shots of Mad Dog in them, they would admit that yes, I am an expert. I know the New Testament or the Old Testament. I know it in 7 languages. I can just repeat it by heart. I'm the world's greatest expert. I'm recognized, and I will not deny it, that I'm the world's leading expert on such and such religion or such and such approach. But I tell you, there are certain aspects of the Bible, the Quran, certain aspects of what seems to be God's message to me. Some of it you can't really say as a human that you fully understand. And what they're saying is, without them knowing it, is I don't really understand any of it because I don't approve of all of it. Another stage that you should find curious after that is what is up again. That everything that is accepted as fact, unless you find in yourself or in someone else anything beyond saying 2 and 2 is 4, or that's down. If you get into any idea beyond that, it seems to be uniquely tied to man's inner life, whether it be called spiritual or intellectual. That things are arranged in such a way that what everyone says they believe in, no one fully believes in. And if you don't fully believe in it, that means you do not understand it. And that means that it is not true for you. It is a mathematical certainty once you see it. And much of what seems to be chaos and confusion, that although week by week, apparently, at times I'll pick out some area, and sometimes some of you think, well, I have turned it in such a way or talked about it in such a way that you can see it in a manner that apparently clarifies it somewhat. Still, by and large, you walk around and it seems like a madhouse out here. That is, insofar as trying to superimpose some map, some structure on all of this is working, and some, as I call it, some triaxial dance. There is some progress going on even when apparently things are falling apart. That is simply the fertilizer, the building, the restructuring of something new. Sometimes I almost see it, but then again I get away from these meetings and it's just like everything is out of control almost. Once you see that what you call out of control is the norm, then your fear of out of control is gone. The old ideas of saying life is out of control, there's nothing wrong with those terms except for this. Here's a prime example. People that say, hey, life is a madhouse and it's out of control, they don't fully believe that. And so for them it's not true. If they fully believed it, we might assume there's been some people right around that fully believed it. And I might say that they are prime candidates, if not executioners, of that very private hobby of suicide. But ordinarily people who say, hey, life is out of control. Forget all these theories about the gods and great cosmic laws of some kind running things. Look around you, my good man. Things are just out of control. The world is just on the verge of being an asylum with no walls. The person does not fully believe that, and so it is not true. Thus you have a situation, if you can get a glimpse of it, of life being arranged to where everyone has certain beliefs. I assume by now you do see this is of primary importance to ordinary people. This primary manifestation is in what seems to be the spiritual life or the inner life, the psychological life of people, as opposed to the laws of mathematics or science. But you have life having things arranged in such a way that everyone is a walking, at least small compendium of a series of proclaimed beliefs. That, all right, I know a few things. I know that, whatever you reap, you must sow. I know so-and-so. I know thus and thus must happen when you die. I know that thus and thus is the way you should treat your fellow man. You'll find it in you, and then you see it in everyone else, that there is some degree of uneasiness, some degree of negativity about all of this. The people say, I know, without any doubt, that you must reap what you sow. It's fair, it's equitable, it explains a lot, but nobody fully lacks anything. The person would say that. If nothing else, if I could grab them and squeeze some further energy words out of them, they might say, well, I know it's true, but damn, there should be some leeway, because I, and probably a few other people in the world, but I know I personally, when I was younger, I did things now that, God, I sorely regret. And it's not fair that I should go somewhere down the line and got to pay for it. I was a child when I did things like this. That's before I came back to religion. That's before I got to be a grown person. I guess I did do some dumb things. I didn't mean to. I wasn't fully in control of myself at an earlier age. I used to drink. I was married to a woman that drove me crazy. So, the person who says the greatest equalizer, be it taken in a religious context or not, is the notion, which I accept fully. It's just true that you will reap what you sow. But if you get in that person's wiring system, as I was saying, if I could squeeze the words, and you've got it all in you to feel it, but if you've got in their wiring system that said, I believe it, it's true, it explains everything, it's fair, it's just, all of us will be treated equally eventually. It's just everything turning back around that you're going to get your just desserts, be they good or otherwise. You get down in that system, you find out that there are exceptions. They do not fully approve of it. Is the examples I was trying to make up. That, hey, what if you did something you didn't know better? What if you had an extreme headache? You'd been sick a few days and you turned to somebody and you spoke harshly. Just all sorts of possibilities. It's a great idea and I believe it. But, certain parts of it, or certain areas I can think of, at least theoretically, I'm not fully comfortable with. In that case, now let me make this up, which I'm making it up, but let's say in another dimension, where in the reality of our shadow lives, the origins exist, let us say that the notion of you reap what you sow is an absolute cosmic law. Let's say it is. Objective, true, no exceptions. Let's say it is. For a person who says, I believe in it, and yet there's some uneasiness, that very objective cosmic law is not true. Now remember I said that wasn't true to start with. But if it were true, then anyone who says, I've heard it, I've read it, it was revealed to me, the gods told me it's true, and they have any uneasiness, any doubt about it, it is not true. Just as sure as 2 and 2 is not 5, so I've been told. So even if something in some way was outside what I was intending to convey by the notion of it was cosmically, non-personal, and objectively true, anyone who says, I approve of it, I believe in it, I know it's true, and they have any uneasiness, that very non-personal objective truth is no longer true. It simply is not. What is life up to that it has people, all the way from apparent religious, psychological, spiritual, social leaders, all the way down to all of us peons and serfs and surfers, saddled with, living by, dressed up in, limited by, promised to by, all of these ideas, all of these truths, which are not true, even if they're true at another level. What is life up to? But if you get the first glimpse of this, you'll be surprised what it'll take away. I wasn't going to really describe a lot, but I'm not hitting everybody tonight as strong as it happens sometimes. So I'm going to point out just a little bit. To get a glimpse of this, I'm not going to spell it out, but to get a glimpse of this will lead you very quickly into some corners of life's ordinary arrangement, that all of you have voices that have had to wrestle with the notion that you can't criticize, when obviously there's so many people walking around who are just shams, that something is wrong. How is it that I'm surrounded by, well, I don't say fools, since, you know, I'd get all over you if I knew it, so you think, well, they're not fools, but God, how can the whole world be people by those saying, I believe in so-and-so and it's true, and they're just something. I just look at them and I feel, you don't really believe that. If I got down and talked to you, you'd say, yeah, I believe it, but I don't know. I don't like it all. I don't approve of it all. Look no further. Look to you of all the ideas that you have of things, and regardless of what I've told you, many of you still got voices that say, regardless of what he said, there's got to be some validity to astrology. I mean, people's believed in it too many years. Books are still being written that make bestseller lists. Intelligent people, there's got to be something to it. I know there is. You do not know it absolutely. And therefore, it's not true, even if it were true. Some of the other things that you might find suddenly to become clarified in a way that is not just wiping syrup off of a Waffle House table. It is like going from a two-dimensional view of staring at something, and it goes into three-dimensional. Is all of the conflicts that seems, from a reasonable yellow circuit approach, to be unprofitable, if not insane, between religions, arguing, not just major religions, but inside one religion, these little factions arguing over one word in a sentence in some holy book. Whole schisms happening within, dividing up millions of people over one word. Head priests and rabbis pulling up banners and hollering, I am right, and you look at it if you're not involved with it, and you think, well, he says criticism is never in order, but I believe I'm going to, I got the risk just a little. These people are nuts, and they're not nuts. But for you to have a voice and say, wait, one of these people are so obviously correct that I can't believe that an equal number has split off from this, and they're arguing over this one word, the interpretation over something that is meaningless. How can this other group be so blind? Neither one are right. You are left, once you see this, since I don't like to promise, how about just a slight suggestion again? You're left with being able to buy, well, you actually get it free. If you want to look at it that way, it doesn't cost hard currency, but it's like having delivered into your own personal little system 4 or 5 50-gallon drums of fresh air. And it all goes up here is aha. It is mathematically, it's even stronger than mathematics, but that's as good as most of you can understand, that any idea that you do not fully approve of, no matter what this says, that I believe such and such is true, you'll see. And everything, it's just, you can see it as soon as you look, or you do not belong here. That no matter what you and your partnership can say, I believe in such and such, there is always a but. There's always at least this that you can find it that I believe fully in so-and-so, but there are parts of it, or some part, that's unfair. That the gods, the cosmic forces, screwed up a little bit. I guarantee you as they say at the Jazz Festival, guarantee that you do not understand it, and as soon as you get a glimpse of this, it's no longer open to debate, because these words are not fully covering it. Anything that you disapprove of in one molecule in you, you do not understand it, because you cannot disapprove of anything you understand. So whatever it is that you in the partnership says, I believe in this, I agree with this because it is true, you'll see that there's always reservations. There's always some feeling of discomfort, even if I say it's absolutely true, there's some part of it I don't approve of. You do not understand it, period. And when you see it, it is a great relief. Then when you see it in others, it is a great expanse suddenly presented to you in these 50-gallon drums of nothing. It's very refreshing nothing. Then there is a further expanse that I kept hinting at or asking you to try and consider if you could see that no one at the ordinary level on the planet understands anything they're talking about. It's a matter of degrees because everything keeps running. But nobody understands fully what they're talking about. And or, you can put any of these first or second, they're all synonymous. No one on this planet, no matter what authority they seem to speak with, no matter what seems to be their credentials, no matter what seems to be their conviction, no one says anything, no one believes anything on this planet absolutely, which is synonymous with what I just said. Synonymous with both of those is anything that anybody says they believe that they do not either fully approve of or understand, which is the same thing, is not true. Even if it were true, it's not true for them. All of that's synonymous. It changes everything. It will change any possible entanglement with other people's ideas. It stops what relieves me of having to tell you, do not criticize people. Not for moral or religious reasons. I'm telling you, don't criticize people. It's more than a waste of time. It's a hindrance. It can be a morbific hindrance. I can cease that because there's nothing any longer to criticize. Even if it's you silently with your own voices, listening to the radio, overhearing people, staying around at a bus stop, at a concert, at a museum, and you're surrounded by these idiots just coming out with half-baked theories, ideas, something that they read 20 years ago in an undergraduate book, or they read 2 days ago in Time magazine in a review. They misread it. They can't remember something from 2 weeks ago. They're mispronouncing the name of the artist, the musician, the philosopher, the author. And they're saying, well, I've read his books before, and his ideas turn my life around. And you hear it, and you want to, you're hoping I'm not around, and that I'm not mystic enough to know that you're going to go, I'm going to have to criticize a little bit. I mean, these people, they're idiots. And as soon as you hear an idiot over here doing this, suddenly you hear one almost worse over here, staying right behind you, looking at the painting, listening to the music, discussing the books. You don't know what a relief it is. There is no place to criticize. There are no idiots around. There are no degrees of it. If you're going to call them idiots, then we're just simply at line level. Everybody's an idiot. Well, I just told you. Nobody understands anything. If they did, they would like it. If they did, you can't criticize it. What's there to criticize that you like? Nothing. If you don't fully understand it, you're going to make some critical remark. Or you're going to say, I don't fully approve of it. I mean, I guess the gods knew what they were doing. I personally would have done it another way. That's criticism. If you understand something, there's no degree of criticism. So you're freed from being surrounded by idiots. Then, at least for a while, you should find it of interest. I'm no longer surrounded by idiots. Now I'm surrounded by this very interesting question is, why is life at this binary three-dimensional level, why is it arranged in such a way that no one fully understands anything, and that anything that anybody says they fully believe in, they don't? And anything that anybody says is absolutely true without a doubt, for that person, it is not. Even if it is, on some other level. Anybody who says, I know there is a God, unless you're going to find me somebody, this is not a challenge because you simply see that it's true what I'm telling you. Nobody fully believes in a God. Nobody. So, even if there is one, what you've got to understand is nobody on this planet knows it. And so any disagreement they have is meaningless. And you're simply freed. You're unplugged from that. And then you can be left for a little bit with this new hobby. Of course, the more you get to this, as some of you find, there's no end to hobbies. Well, until you go too far. But then the hobby is no longer mad, no longer pissed, no longer critical, no longer hearing idiots, but is to ponder, what is life? What other beautiful thing have I yet to see? That life comes from one dimension down into our dimension, and that everything seems to be predicated. Progress. Our very humanity seems to be based upon our ability to recognize some truth. Not just 2 and 2 is 4, and not just if I release this, the sway of gravity, the curves within the space-time continuum will make this go in this direction. No. We're talking about serious truths of us being able, in our humble way, to get in touch with the gods, or to recognize there are gods, to recognize there are certain psychological, spiritual forces that control what we do. And we should attune ourselves, and we would all be better people. We would not be like the idiots some of my fellow men are. That that's not true. That no one understands anything fully, therefore nobody can completely approve of anything, and the very things that seem to be the basis of man's spiritual. And by that I mean in the greatest sense of the word, even those that consider themselves agnostics or atheists. Our very humanity is based upon certain obvious, salient, unassailable laws having to do with the way we treat each other and what the payoff will be. And the simple fact is, even if those were true, they are not true to anybody who believes it. What is life up to? That the very reality upon which everything seems to be based is not true for anybody who believes it's true. And that people are not idiots, and there's not something left amiss within the intercourse of humanity that makes people fight over religious, spiritual, humanistic, philosophical ideas. It's not that. It's that no one believes anything that satisfies them. What else can you expect? And so one person trying to convince this other person that my way is right, this person doesn't believe it either. How can you any longer ever be surprised? Of course, this is a rhetorical question. You don't analyze it once you see it. It just is. But until you get there, we'll spend these few minutes and I'll talk. How is it that you would expect otherwise? That this guy says, I believe in such and such religion, or in such and such approach, such and such mystical theory, reality. Another guy says, well, I don't. And so he wants to recruit him, or to show him the error of his ways. But this guy, the first guy, doesn't believe it. How can you find that curious? He doesn't believe it. You're going to find it in you. Anybody's trying to recruit somebody else. Street corner, high class, in a great cathedral somewhere. Anybody's trying to convert somebody to something else. What else can you expect? They don't fully believe it. Synonymous with that, they do not like it. They got reservations about it. Synonymously with that, it's not true. What else are you going to do in that position? It's obvious. You try to bring somebody else in with you. Also, some of you, somewhere along the line, might find it curious that, at least I've hinted to you, and some of you have suspected, that when this kind of thing life does comes out at a certain level at certain times, when its immediacy dies. That's really it. There are no siblings to it. It just dies. It does not produce children. Because you can't recruit people, and anybody comes along and says, wait a minute, I just heard a little bit of this, and I believe it. I believe in it. You got me. It's not that far removed from dogs and fleas. As long as you've got to say you believe in it, you don't believe in it. As long as you say you believe in anything, but you don't really like all of it, but hey, I'm a big boy, I'm a big girl, and you got to face things like this. There are certain truths that you come across in life. There are certain things I can see clearly now. They're true. If I have to tell you the truth, I don't really like all of it, but hey, the gods didn't ask me, so I guess they know what they're doing. It's true. I don't like it all, but it's true, and I can live with it. It's not true. I don't care who said it. I don't care whether it was even you. It is not true. If it was true, of course, in words I say, if it was true, you would like it. But that's meaningless. If it's true, it's not a matter of like or dislike. If it's true, you no longer ever think to comment on it, much less to criticize it, much less to defend it. Once you see that one, if I can isolate reality, that one area here is true, and you simply see it's true, it's as though, at the ordinary level, in the ordinary sense, you just forget it. It just ceases to be. It's your fingernails. It's dirt on the ground. It's just the reality that beyond Rogers and Hammerstein, that the hills are alive with the sounds of hills, and that's it. There's nothing else to be said until maybe somewhere down the garden path, sometime later, somebody you hear make a critical comment about it, staying here behind you, and you think, hey, and it's good for a first class, just a good old smile. If I put words on, of course, here I go lying. But you realize I hadn't thought about that in years. I should have known better. People are still arguing over that. People still don't understand that the hills are alive with the sound of hills. And what goes up must go up. And I'd just forgotten now. What a pleasure it is. Life is still alive, things are all right, because there's people still arguing about that. Not forgotten about it. I suggest, urge you one more time, that there is a lot more to this. But if you can try and remember it yourself and look, it's not that far from many of you. And I'm not playing with words after all this little humor and running around. It is, you understand that I am just trying to rhetorically be pushy when I say it's mathematically, even more than mathematically true. That anything, that anybody, any idea, any theory, any religious truth, anything, whatever they call it, that anyone does not fully, unconditionally approve of, which I already told you encompasses everything at line level. But any idea that anybody does not unconditionally approve of, they do not understand. I don't mean that they're just a little confused. I don't mean that there's just something lacking. Am I making it strong enough? For somebody that says, I believe in reincarnation, and I'm telling you, nobody on this planet can say unconditionally that they believe in it. If anybody could, I'd know them. I'd know who they are and where they were. Plus, if they understood it, this is all beside the point because it's not true, they would never say it. Don't you know? You got to remember that. They'd never think to say it. But anybody who says that it's true, it is not true. And it's just an absolute, inescapable fact once you see it. There's much more that's closer to you, without me having to confuse it much more in words, that the whole, at least verbal world, which is more to that than I'm saying, But the whole verbal world is based upon proclamations of that which is true, that which people believe in, that which people support, which they do not. They cannot. And when I say that if they disapprove of it, they do not understand it, it's totally do not understand it. For them to say, I believe in reincarnation, except I don't approve of all of it. I mean, certain parts of it make me uneasy. When I say they don't understand it, I don't mean that there's some little part they've yet to figure out. There's no word stronger for me to say they do not understand it at all. Even if there's some reality to it, they don't understand any of it. And that's not just everybody out there, that's everybody in here. You'll be surprised at what can seem, or what does seem, from many views, to be the Tower of Babel that you're surrounded by verbally. Is not. It cannot be otherwise. And there is no place, no possibility for anyone who understands anything to get entangled with it. You don't have to struggle not to, or to say, I'll bite my tongue. I'll play like he's here, and if he sees me criticize or furrow my brow, he'll jump out and say, you're criticizing inside. Shame on you. It's no longer a problem. It is not a Tower of Babel. It's not idiots arguing with each other over how many rockets can dance on the head of a pin. It is no discussions about anything. It is life moaning and groaning as it moves, as it grows. And you're not listening to somebody who is a little more intelligent over here with a little more reasoned viewpoint in conflict with somebody over here that's an idiot. There is no such struggle going on. Anybody who talks does not understand what they're talking about, except, of course, with a few exceptions. See, I don't do it because I want to. Well, let's don't try and help me find a way out. You either understand this or you don't. And those of you just hearing this tape, at least you got to admire the chutzpah by which I extract myself verbally. Do you not? But if you do, you probably don't belong here because there's nothing to admire about it. Having cleared that up, let's press on. As they say in the great mystical dry cleaners in the air, let's press on. Something else I continue to get questions about from you newer people. Some of you have suspected, some of you have been around a few months that are a little more involved with this, have found out that for me to take you seriously and to let you continue with this is I impose a certain few little rules concerning behavior and such things as you cannot take drugs, recreational drugs, and expect to pursue this. I just can't allow it after you stay here for a certain length of time. And it's not moral and it's not religious. It's the laws of molecular dynamics. But let's just take what ordinary people call vices. Because many of you, even in the beginning, you write me notes and letters on what do I think about caffeine, nicotine, eating white sugar, and all of this stuff, and drugs, and booze. Now listen, because this is not just something to write down as a cute one-liner, because it's something else about how things are arranged. All, no matter where they are, what time, what place, all of man's so-called vices throughout history, right up to today, can be seen as an attempt for you newer people. You've got to know something, one of my equations, that is I plus not I equals everything. All right, everything that has been called vices which, remember, life has already put it here in man's midst, made many people seem to have a craving to pursue this, quote, vice, then's got equal numbers or larger numbers prepared to condemn them, to label it unconditionally a vice. And it just seems to go on and on. The importance, the possible importance of what I'm saying, has got nothing to do with vices, individual, and etc. But everything that has ever been called a vice can be seen as this. If you're looking at an individual level, which you can find it in yourself and you can see it everywhere else, it can be seen as an attempt, apparently, to expand the scope of the plus. It's like an attempt to expand this. It is as though it is an attempt to distance oneself from the not I, the apparent not I, the energy apparently external to oneself. We don't have to play let's make a deal here. I don't have to ask for, shout out your suggestions. Think of any so-called vice that you ever heard about, imagined about, read about, and every one of them from a certain view. If we were treating individual people as though they had really room to maneuver, and that people really had, ordinary people, some great deal of room in which at one time they decided, hey, I think I'll start drinking a lot. It seems to kind of addle my brain. It seems to, I mean, as long as I can motivate, well, even if I can't, fuck it, I'll worry about that years from now. But it seems to kind of, mess up my head. I'm not really myself. That in some way, along the line, they had a chance, and they sat down, they tested it and thought about it, and decided, yes, I will start drinking a lot. Which is not true. There's not that kind of room to maneuver in people. But if we were dealing on the, right now for the sake of this, verbally, treating people as though they were rather free-willed who's, you can take any vice, take drinking, and you can see from a certain view it's as though that individual, if they had the freedom to do it, and if they had in some way been able to willfully bring on my desire and my participation in heavy drinking, continual consumption of alcohol, it's as though it's an attempt to enlarge the scope between what seems to be I and not I. They can all be seen in a certain way as though it were an attempt to distance oneself. Any so-called vice you can think of fits this. Does anyone find that interesting? I don't care what it is, no matter how small it was, or you might consider it small. If you're the kind of person that, until I stopped you, if you're the kind of person right now that every night with dinner, you have a small glass of wine. Every so-called vice will fit into this. I'm not saying that's all there is to it, but you can certainly get a lot more from this with that which seems to be vices in you that one time you had, some that you think you still have. No matter how small, no matter how personal they seem to be, that it really involves no one but you. It can be seen as an attempt to put some distance between I and not I. Those that might be able to pursue this more, I'll push it one step or add something verbally. As though as an attempt to put a distance between me and my consciousness, my perception of not me. And it's not as simple as people saying, well, I have so many problems, I drink myself into oblivion. You don't have to go that far. Any vice, any so-called vice, no matter its apparent magnitude. Let's try some of the questions. Well, let's turn the tape over since we're close to the end. Then we'll try the questions. Do not adjust your sets at home. Try some of the questions. What is the kind of energy that some people can generate that comes out as an apparent, I'm paraphrasing these as always, but it seems to come out as a kind of fear. I find myself at line level worrying about what I do, what I say, that other people might get angry and disapprove of me, and I seem to be driven to go out of my way to go to extremes to avoid this. Now, do I have any comment? Well, let me remind you people who've never heard it, which of course I'm not reminding you, I'm pointing it out. There is a fairly simple binary manner that many people have found benefit from once I pointed out of this kind of view. Talking about ordinary life right now, we're starting out. That there definitely seems to be, with many people, a problem that I'm afraid people are going to get mad and disapprove of me. And that it seems to color everything I do, it seems to limit the options of my behavior and where I go, and I'm always feeling like I'm on guard. Take this in a very binary way and just look at it. It's just obvious. Just one of my arbitrary mappings out, but that many people have benefited from. You can look around, that you and everybody else, and you can immediately divide the world into not, but to big groups of people. One group seems to be driven by the desire to seek approval from others. The other group, just as plainly, seems to be driven by the desire, above all, to avoid disapproval from other people. And that's it. You can see it just as clearly, just everybody you know, except that I'm giving you, if it doesn't strike you immediately, just believe me, I'm giving you a very valid map. And then think about anybody you want to right quick. Your mother, your father, your first and second wife, third and fourth husband, your boss at work, your best friend, your brother, your sister. It'll just strike you. Just almost everybody on this planet. They'll just strike you without any doubt that, yeah, if those two categories, if we accept those, everybody you can name, they obviously, everything they do, the way they dress, the way they act, the way they talk, the volume at which they talk, the way they act at parties, the way they act when they come into work, the way they act when they see me, their facial gestures, the way they stand, everything will tell you that people, using these two arbitrary map groups that I've designed for you, that, all right, so-and-so, you know, there are variations about the degree. But given those two choices, everybody you name, all right, so-and-so, obviously, given one of those two possibilities, they're seeking, their desire is to get approval. Maybe not everything they say they expect the Marine marching band and dancing girls to come into the room and holler, yay, but given those two choices, they obviously are seeking approval. The time they spend dressing, the way they check themselves in mirrors. I know that they have taken lessons in diction. I know their fingernails are clean. I know they try to keep up with books. I know they'll start conversations with people at parties about, hey, have you seen such and such movie? And they'll express their opinion, maybe not in a real pushy manner, but they'll do things that's just obviously that they're seeking. They want other people, the not eyes, to give them approval. That kind of energy to pass back. Then there are other group that the people you can see just as clearly, given those two choices, all right, they're people I know, maybe your kin, without any doubt, if they fit in one of those two groups, they don't seem to have any real interest in seeking approval. The way they dress, the way they act, the way they look at people, where they go, the kind of activities they get involved with. But, I mean, just in general, they seem to almost be immune to the idea that other people approve of them. But if you want their attention, all it takes, a stranger, a fellow employee, somebody at a bar, is for somebody just to give them a look like, and suddenly they become alive. That it's just obvious that they will do almost anything that they seem to be driven by some inexplicable, perhaps to you, need, desire to avoid any disapproval. But apparently these people, when it gets to some extreme, which is not all that unusual, that these people would refrain from going out to a particular place if they had any idea that somebody, perhaps that they'd met in the past, might be there that seems to disapprove of them. It doesn't have to be to the degree that ordinary people, ordinary life would label as being psychotic, but it's just obvious. Once you think about these two categories, that many people you know, they seem to be almost oblivious or almost immune through their whole behavior, the way they dress, the way they appear, that they do not seem to be seeking anybody's approval. But just as strong, they seem to be driven by a need to avoid any disapproval. All right, I have given as a task, even last week, for those people who are, I've given this task in the past, some things related to this. Because you can find, just immediately, you should be able to see it, that your ordinary consciousness, that is what seems to be your own personality, given its own wiring, its own devices, that all of you would fall within one of those two categories. And for many people I've given tasks in the past, one of their first great brushes with freedom is for me to pick out people. Or for me to say, well, you're such and such. Or all of you know which one you are, and if any of you don't, raise your hand. And when you do, I say, all right, you belong in such and such category. It's under specific conditions. I tell everybody, all right, next week or at certain times on a certain day, you have got to act as though you belong just mechanically in the other group. And with some people, that's just astounding. Some people hear this the first time, and something will strike them with Jesus. That's true. And they find a great amount of relief in that. It's not just me, it's everybody. That there have been parts of my own partnership that at times try to sit down and congratulates me that I am not totally captured by the ordinary run of seeking people's approval. I haven't wasted my money on an extensive wardrobe. I don't go out. I don't have things to prove to people. I'm not like so-and-so. I'm not like my sister. I'm not like my mother. I'm not always begging like approval like some lapdog. But then it strikes you, well, I've never been all that happy. At times I've told myself and a few close friends I've talked about when we'd be criticizing other people who are out there, always spending their money on a new car, new clothes, always trying to be up with the latest dance. All the people that say, yeah, I've read the latest book. And what a way to waste your life. Jesus. Of course, you're not totally happy with it because you don't understand it. But some people find it just to be almost an immediate relief to realize that, hey, I keep saying that, at least I'm not like that. But my God, I'll walk 20 minutes on my way rather than go by this place at one time I went to dry cleaners and they laughed at a dress I brought in. But this one restaurant I went in one time and I remember the way the maitre d' treated me. And I find that now I'll be walking home from being out shopping or somewhere and I will go blocks out of my way. And I realize it's just on the possibility. I never even analyzed it. It's been 10 years ago, but that same maitre d', I'm afraid he may be still there, may be already at work or about to go to work, may be staying outside smoking a cigarette, and I'm going to come by after all these years, and then he's going to look at me and he's going to say, God, it's you again. The ill-mannered guy that didn't know how to order wine and had on that purple tie with a red coat, or whatever it was, whatever you imagined it was. That you realize what a big thing it is of you seeking to avoid disapproval. All right. It is a simple fact. It has to do with what appears to be the binary flows of energy. Because do not get too entrapped, you newer people hearing these tapes, that I'm not really talking about a psychological problem, nothing about somebody's background, nothing about your childhood environment other than who your parents were genetically, had anything to do with you apparently being driven by the desire to seek approval, or withal being driven by the desire to avoid any disapproval. The only significance was, which is almost no significance, is your own molecular structure, your own DNA, your own biochemical reality of what you are. It is a flow of energy. And that's just one description of me saying the desire to have approval or the desire to avoid disapproval. That's just one description. It's flows of energy. And it takes apparently two different kinds of people to keep energy going, male and female, tall and short, thin and fat, loud and people who are soft. People who say, God, ain't I great, don't you love me? And people that go, you ain't all that great because I don't like people always seeking my approval. You don't like what? Oh, that's okay. Well, yeah, I guess, I see your point. Because unknowingly I'm wired up, I don't somebody say, what'd you say? Because then I go, yeah, oh yeah, hey, I agree, I didn't hear you. We're talking about a transfer of energy when we talk about it going from apparently dominant personalities to more submissive personalities, from people who seem to be hot to people who seem to be cold, from people that seem to be natural-born leaders and those who seem to be natural-born followers. Other than this oft-times immediate relief that people seem to get from just hearing this, is more of that first breath of freedom some people get, is to take it up on yourself until I get around to making it an absolute task. You realize, all right, what I do, I'm just wired up, left to my own devices, being good old me. I'm the kind that seeks to avoid any disapproval. It's take the matter in hand and say, that's fine, fuck all that. And begin to do an absolute act, which requires, as close as possible when you start, the vast majority of your molecular structure being involved with something that it says it doesn't believe in. See, the difference between that and where I started tonight, not something it believes in, something it almost totally does not believe in, that this is an act, this is faking it, this got nothing to do with me. Now you're getting somewhere. It's all right, I'm going to start being, Am I it? Am I something? Did I tell you about every time a subject comes up, say something? See, the difference between that and where I started tonight, not something it believes in, something it almost totally does not believe in, that this is an act, this is faking it, this got nothing to do with me. Now you're getting somewhere. It's all right, I'm going to start being, Am I it? Am I something? Did I tell you about every time a subject comes up, say something like, yes, I was in Paris last year. Did you go to such and such restaurant? Huh? Wasn't that great? And you're getting... And it's nothing like you, because you stand around and your own voices criticize people like that. You hear them talk and you think, good God. Chances are those people hadn't even been to Paris. I can hear people just bullshitting. They're just trying to impress each other. This guy's going to say, yeah, the last time I was in Paris, and this other guy's going to say, well, yes, but we don't go to Paris anymore. I mean, there's so many of the sorts that are not our types. We now, we end up in Geneva a lot. And then somebody over here is going to say, oh, Geneva, I just love Geneva. I know what they're doing. I know what they're doing, and I'm not going to have any part of it. It's to jump in and have every part of it. That you're just, as far as you're concerned, you and your partnership is just begging for it. Because sometimes you suspect these people all know this is some kind of sham. But they're all involved with it, so they won't say anything. But if I get into it and I say, well, yes, that reminds me the last time I was in Tasmania. That if I do that, everybody's going to go, they're going to realize this is a joke. They're going to realize I've never said anything before in these crowds. They know I've never been out of town. Or they figure I haven't, as dull as I am. And if I start there, they're going to say, what? And they're not even going to go through this tacit game with each other when they know better. They're all going to say, hey, you, out. Let people that know how to do this do it. Get out. And it's not true. You begin to find out that such terms as me saying people are hardwired and there's almost no room to maneuver, that's not a joke. You simply start putting on an act and you start reversing the kinds of flows of energy that seems to be how you were wired up to participate. That is, you began to fake it, that you seem to be just obviously, as far as you're concerned, just patently, blatantly seeking approval. And all these people that ordinarily do it, you know, they're just going to look through me. I'm just going to like a pane of glass. And you do it, and nobody even notices. God, you don't know whether to laugh or whether to cry. Of course, at first you want to laugh, and then you want to find me and cry and kiss my hand and thank me for doing it. It's just child's play. But everybody needs to do it, to find out that no one will see what's going on. And then to find out, assuming you, of course, belong in this, we're talking now about you people, not ordinary people, to find out it does not matter. That if you're wired up already to feel like that you want to, above all, avoid disapproval, to you, those who seem to be in the other camp, to you, seem to be in a better position. But likewise, the people in the other camp, when they think about it, they think, well, when they think about you, they think, boy, this person's a lot better off than I am. They are so hip, they're so sophisticated, or they're so wise, they don't have to get here and go through all this crowd. They just stand over in the corner and they seem to take it all in, and they don't come over here and have to go through all this lying to each other and worrying about what people think. Boy, I wish I could be more like that. And you're standing over thinking, boy, I wish I could be more like that. Those people can just go there and talk, just run their mouth, talk about anything, kind of, you know, drop their drawers and show their ass to the world. And most of the time, nothing happens to them. If I did it, the whole world would look at me and go, ha, 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 and maybe even hurt me. And you find out that neither one is in any position to envy the other, that nothing is going on. You can walk from one camp to the other, and it's just meaningless, which, of course, is true in any binary situation. You find out that the absolute non-personal nature of everyone's attitude, that as long as you're locked into one of these camps, one of these binary positions, to you, everyone's attitude is very personal. Your attitude about what other people will think, whether they're going to approve or disapprove of you. That if you overstep the boundaries of what you should be doing, what you're wired up to do, then everybody else's attitude is still going to stay personal. In fact, probably become more personal, them saying, hey, what are you doing? This is not like you. What is it? Are you drunk? It takes about that long. It's like throwing a switch in a relay system for you to suddenly come out of the corner and come over there and start doing what they're doing. This will go, because they're not used to it. After that, forget it. You're one of the crowd. You're in a new group, and it's meaningless. There is no personal attitude involved on anybody's part. And you're the only one right there with any degree to maneuver. It's almost suddenly you're an unrecognized dictator. That suddenly, for the first time in many people's lives, you feel like I have some sense of control. I suddenly came out of the corner because, you know, either I made you do it and told you to do it or get out, or there was enough to you when you first heard about it, you decide, hey, I'm going ahead and shoot the whole works, blow the farm, do it all. I'm going to go ahead and do it and see if I actually die, since I guarantee you, you won't die if you belong here. If you die, it's proof you didn't belong here. Notice again, huh? Not true. You got my money back guarantee. But you see, you come out of the corner, once you see, all right, I keep seeking to avoid disapproval, and you suddenly jump over there with those going through this whole little scenario over there, this little circus, them all seeking approval, and you jump right in the middle and you go with it. And after that long, they accept it. No question, you're one of it. Many of you have been through this. It's as though it went from a two-dimensional scene of you being over here locked in one position, envying people in another position, you go over there, and suddenly it goes into 3 dimensions, and you're the only person in the 3 dimensions. They're still in the 2 dimensions, and they can't help it. They have to accept what you do, and to you, it's an absolute act. In fact, I was afraid to come over here. I just thought sure I would faint. I just knew I had to do it. You know, I told you you had to, or you decided you had to. That was the longest 5 steps I ever took. From over there to you people, and all the voices, the partnership and everything in me told me as soon as I come over there and start joining right in and trying to fake that, I don't even think I can do it. But if I even try, everything's going to stop. The room, these people, the world may stop, and people are going to go, what? Oh, come on. And you forced yourself, somewhere you got over there, and you suddenly joined in, and after that long, you're suddenly there. It's almost as though you suddenly stepped into a ring of trained animals, and you're the only person that's got any freedom. I started to say that you're the only person with a whip and a chair, but it's almost true that you realize I can step in and out of this, and nobody even recognizes it. They take me as being one of them. And at the ordinary level, I could not be further removed. I've been laughing at them. I've been criticizing them. I've hated them. I've envied them. And now I'm here, and it's meaningless. They don't even recognize it. I'm a fake. I've laughed at you people. I've criticized you people. I've stood in the corner, you didn't know it, and I went, and I've wished I could come over here and be with you, and now I'm one of you, and it don't mean shit. Except I'm the only one that knows it. The rest of you are taking this very seriously. Yeah. Just doing it will give you a whole notion of the need to learn how to fake doing certain things until you fully understand it. And you can't go wrong by faking, because all you've got to do is see that in every situation, at the ordinary level, there is a binary structure. When I've told you, and many of you have got glimpses of it, that everything is based upon a triad, that there are always 3 legs to every situation, at the very least. But just 3 to worry about now. But what you see in every situation is a binary structure. It's me and then not me. It's my idea about what should be going on, and then these other people who don't see it correctly. It's me being here envying those people over there. I wish I could be more like them. It's me being locked into a certain position, and these people over here are more free in their behavior, their laughter, their attitude. And I've lived such a sad life. I've had such heartbreak and all that. All you've got to do is move from one binary position to the other, and the game is going downhill. You're putting yourself in a precarious slide. Except for this, it's the world's only occasion where you go into a slide and it goes up, which is really frightening. A slide going down, hell, you can have nightmares about that after an anchovy pizza. But to begin to realize that you can slide uphill, we're talking about serious fright. Forget Coney Island and the cyclone, forget Busch Gardens, forget Six Flags over Bayonne. We're talking about serious rides then when you start sliding uphill, and all you got to do is move from one binary position to the other, and to find out that it does not matter at all. Nobody notices that you moved after, I mean, for those of you who just can't believe when I say it doesn't matter, nobody will realize it, just so that you won't think I'm an idiot completely. It's almost as though they notice it, and it lasts that long. That you have stepped out of character. You have stepped out of being you that they all are accustomed to. You're a piece of wallpaper back there, and you suddenly stepped in with them. All right. Since you won't believe that they won't notice it, I grant you, they notice it that long. And that's it. And you find out it is meaningless. It's not that it's better, it's not that it's worse. Next question. Watching certain celebrations run, it occurred to me that there seems to exist a fascination or a need for a kind of body movement by groups of people done in unison, etc. And they were asking, do I have any comment? All right. That is a very true and useful observation. And it has to do with the power of common energy. The appearance of a common energy by more than one person. The power of groups of people marching, groups of people dancing. The impression that seems to cause, even beyond just the marching, like a kind of nationalistic behavior during times of war. That people in an area, a community or a nation, besides their internal diversities, political and economic and otherwise, it comes time of some sort of war between the two princes again. It's then as though all the people in principality C or D, it's as though they take on a common purpose. And when I say movement such as marching or dancing, It can be the movement of the tongue, that suddenly everyone is a fervent chauvinist for their principality. And there is a power to it. And everybody recognizes it. They may call it a good power if they're part of it. They call it, of course, an evil power if they're in opposition to it. There is a power to the apparent common thrust of energy in group worship and all kinds of rituals. There are two different things. There's a different thing in seeing, like the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church. Some of them have some of the Orthodox. Well, all of you have had your own experience in certain things, but you see perhaps one person, like the priest, the leader, come up and go through certain things. That seems to have an impression. Seems to have an impression, if we're talking about outside the so-called religious area, to watch the fanatic, the fascist up on a balcony, coming out and making a speech to all these people. That seems to be one thing. He goes through a certain, it may not be identified as a ritual, but it is, making signals, stopping when he says something, waiting for applause, turning off after he makes a good point and everybody wants to applaud. That seems to have one effect. But there is another effect when the crowd is acting, or when the group of people, that the priest, the head man, comes up and lights candles and does whatever he does and moves books around and changes this, and the people watch. There's always some dress, there's some way to distinguish him from everybody else. He does this, or she does this, and it seems to have an effect. But then there's a different effect when it comes time that the congregation, the followers, join in. That it's now their time for everybody to get up and light a candle, or everybody get up and stand up and hold their hands in a certain way, or everybody get on their knees, everybody bow down. There is a real power to it. It's not psychological power. It's not religious fanaticism. There is a power to it when you've got a group of people who seem to be acting in unison. But it has to do with energy being focused in a certain way. And the most frightening, of course, if I have to point out to you, is when it seems to be red circuit based. And you could apparently analyze it in a, quote, psychological way. Before I point out the obvious examples, some of you look at TV, if they're still doing it, and they show ads for the Marines need some good people. There's one I've seen several times, and they always show certain types of guys. I don't care what nationality, what race, what the color of their eyes or their hair. And they'll show them out running the obstacle courses and a boot camp and all sorts of things, and then suddenly they're through and they go on their uniform and they say things like the Marines or the Air Force, but the Marines, the one I remember, need a few good men. And everybody's got this same type if you can't see it. And they'll show them. Somewhere down your red circuit should be a small little chill, like I would not like to be caught in an alley with this guy. I don't mean just because he's big and strong, not just that. I would not like to be caught in an alley and have to discuss anything with him. Let me add that. Because if I did, it's going to end up with this. They got that same look. We're talking about seriously dedicated, that is, seriously wired up, red circuit people. Seeing hundreds, thousands, God forbid, hundreds of thousands of these suckers marching. Forget, you people who think you are already wired up to be more yellow circuit or blue circuit oriented, that you read theories that disturb you. You read religious opinion that conflicts with yours, and you find that unsettling. Let's be out in the great valley, out in the great fields, and look over there, and here are 10,000 of these guys that they get to pose for the Marines want a few good men. And here they come. I don't care what uniform they're in, I don't care what banners, is you should run. You should feel a great, quite real fear, real fear. There is power in it, and it's not just the power that one of these people individually may kick my ass around. Part of what I was hinting at was it's not just the fear of being caught in the alley with them. It's the fear that if I was put in a situation in a closed room and they told me that I can't get out. Now, I was forced. I had to suddenly bring up a conversation about politics with this guy. Social inequities, anything. If I had to get in a discussion, if I was in some way forced to get in a discussion with this guy, I'm going to leave there, my body's going to be hurt. You just look at him and you should know it. That is down in the red section. It's in all of you, but there is a power to it that the person recognized was asking about my comments. But at any rate, you can see it in other places. You can see it in people out dancing together. You can see it in so-called religious services, I was indicating, through rituals, which do not necessarily bring about a fear, in which you start expanding it from that which is more strictly confined to red circuit activity. But I was pointing out that you get down to the basis of it, and the red circuit activity will get everybody's attention. You can say, listen, I don't like march music. I'm tone deaf. I don't care about march music. I disapprove of warfare. I've been a pacifist all my life. None of that's impressive. You let a bunch of those suckers come marching down the street in a parade, the 4th of July or Guy Fawkes Day or Bayonne's 200th anniversary, and here they come. You can say anything you want to. And what you want to do is get off the street. You want to get out of the way, and you'll feel something when you see them coming. There's nothing to theorize about. It's a focus of energy with more than one route of energy. That is more than one person. And you've got a group that has a certain energy potential in common. Would I say something about what is commonly known as shyness? In a certain way, I spoke a lot about that. It was included in me talking about those who apparently are driven by desire to seek approval, as opposed to those in the other camp who seem to be driven by desire to seek to avoid disapproval. You could look at shyness. Forget any idea about psychological traumas. Forget anything about your treatment of you by your parents or anyone else. It is a biochemical condition just as real as being short-sighted, just as real as having a hearing difficulty, just as real as being born lame is to be born shy. There is no difference. Which should bring you back again, parenthetically speaking, to remind you again that you should be considering why has life arranged things that humanity has always believed, as long as they've been talking about it and had the ability to talk, that from here up, this thing is in some way slightly different than from here down. That what happens in my brain and my personality is subject to dynamics and influences that are unique to it, that are not available to my spleen and my duodenum. And it's not true. That shyness is something vague. Shyness is something that I have picked up like a virus in the air due to the mistreatment of me by my parents and neglect by my parents. You didn't pick it up anywhere. You were born wired up that way. Shyness can be seen to fall in the category of being wired up in the desire to seek to avoid disapproval. Because those who seem to be, quote, shy, look at those who just walk out, walk in a room nude. Back into a room at a costume ball, go nude, and back in the door is a hot cross bun. So-called shy people look at those and think, my God, if my life as a child had been different, I could do that. And I envy those people. They're not shy. We're talking about a molecular, a biochemical difference in them and in you. All a person has to do, if you want to call it shy for the time being instead of being in the camp of seeking to avoid disapproval, is to act non-shy. And if you do, you find out that shyness is a condition that is physical, as opposed to it being from here up somewhere, that's a vague, uncertain area that is open to some kind of manipulation if I had professional help. If somebody could talk to me, if somebody would analyze my handwriting, if I knew when Mercury is in my house in conjunction with the Lincoln Town Car, in some way this would help me. All you've got to do is step outside. All you've got to do is push the limits of your own molecular makeup to see what kind of room you have to maneuver, to see that if those who are used to you being shy, that you're suddenly not shy, boy, are they going to notice it. They'll notice it that long, that you're no longer shy. Now you got to do is step out of it but you realize the effort it takes, that there is an absolute physical pull to bring you back, a physical pull to bring people back who try to get out of the camp of seem to be desiring to avoid disapproval, and you've acted out the kind of scenario I was detailing for you earlier this evening. It is physically as strong as the moon's effect on the tides, as you're suddenly back to you. But once you realize that it is a non-personal, that it is not something unique from here up, and it is something that a few people, who I'm talking to with you, either here or by tape, that you can physically, biochemically, molecular, make yourself suddenly be non-shy. Just imitate those that you identify as being non-shy, is imitate them. Just go do it right now. It is the humor of recognition. It's that kind of first blush with freedom I mentioned. If you can touch and experience that kind of humor of recognizing that this is all non-personal and it's not unique with me from here up, and that I step out of what I am wired up to be, and it's only noticed that long, I can only hold it almost that long, and I'm pulled right back. You don't need to worry about finding humorous movies. That's it. There is the humor. Is a little more perhaps practical. Some of the things I've mentioned to some of you before, I'll point out. If you're trying to give it a small time struggle, which all this is, because the real struggle is just do the kind of thing I'm talking about, is step out of that binary situation from one point of a binary situation into what appears to be the opposite, where you don't belong. But those of you that want to believe that there's ways to work up to this gradually, all right. It's such things as, if you want to struggle against, quote, shyness, is until you can make the big jump, is smile, is always smile. But you got to smile while looking people in the eye. You cannot smile by going. And always be the first to speak in any situation. Do not ever let somebody speak to you first. Look them right in the face, smile, and say, hi. And do not listen to any of your voices talk about your limitations to you. If the topic within myself tonight was about the mystery of life, it would seem to me that the closer that I seem to come to finding some of my own internal answers, it seems that the harder life puts up some kind of obstacles in my way. In a way it seems humorous, in a way it seems terrifying. Could it be that I'm misreading this, and et cetera? Well, this is the kind of question, if you didn't get it, people saying it seems like the more I begin to see, the harder life gets in a certain sense. I hadn't mentioned this in some years now. So those of you that are just reaching that stage, all right, so you're right. So what? Short-lived, if you don't let that strangle you. But it does seem, and you can go back to people that were involved to a lesser degree than I'm involved with this. You can go back and read so-called religious, spiritual, apologetic literature, theological literature, philosophical ramblings throughout the ages, that people, not as actively as involved even as you are, have seemed to have had this experience. That I strive to get closer to the gods. I strive to live a better spiritual life, and when I seem to make one step forward, suddenly it's as though life, has emptied a honeypot on me. That's slang for a dung truck is overturned on me. It seems like every time I can make the slightest bit of progress, life slaps me backwards. That's been noted thousands of years, if that makes you feel like you're in good company. But remember this, anybody that would take time to write that down in a book, if you're in their company, you're not in good company. You're simply around people that got their own imagination, they got their own ramblings published. I mean, if that impresses you, okay, but you're not in good company. There are several ways that you could try and neuralize this, try and see something of it. It is a fact. It is not some kind of personal imagination or delusion on your part to begin at some time to feel quite distinctly that I begin to see, this begins to make some kind of sense to me personally. I begin to get flashes of seeing things. And by the time that I smile, by the time that I have these good internal flashes of humor, and I can see things that almost then become irrelevant, it's like I've overcome some obstacle. I've seen something. I've made some kind of progress. It seems I no sooner than do that, within an hour or a day, I turn around and I picked up some additional problem. It's as though life is singling me out. It's as though things are arranged in such a way as to keep me from doing this. There is validity to that experience. Of course, there's validity to all experience, but I'm telling you on a kind of serious basis that someone would write the question. And that almost all of you go through some variation of this. It is almost meaningless. It is non-mystical in the sense that many people want to believe it is, or that you may have read somebody else describing that every time the gods or the forces let you make a little progress, you're going to pay for it, or they're going to make things harder. It's some kind of trial. There is an absolute, but non-mystical in the sense that ordinary people use it, but there is an absolute, real difficulty of change, which is all I've been talking about in one area for a long time. One of the most important things I would suggest that you could get from the experience is to absolutely realize, beyond any idea of predestination, beyond any ideas that you have read of somebody saying, we're all robots, or life is just mechanical. Remember the times I've used the idea of life being a machine, I always use such terms as vitas machina. And I don't even use it much anymore the more I've talked to you. It is a kind of machine, but it's a living machine which defies any ordinary definitions, because a machine cannot be both, and yet it is. But the kinds of things I've been hinting at, the kinds of things that you should be getting closer to seeing, is that things are arranged in such a way, it's as though a machine were put together that's alive, but like any even non-organic machine, there has to be the tolerances in there for the gears to be able to mesh, for them to be able to move. They cannot be a perfect fit, not in the sense the binary consciousness defines perfect. There has to be a certain kind of sloppiness, a certain amount of looseness. But to begin to see that every time I seem to make some progress, every time I seem to understand a little bit, it's as though life has singled me out and has made things worse, is to see how little room there is to maneuver. And it's not on some mystical basis that life has singled you out. There is validity to the feeling that it has, because there are very few people on this planet attempting to do to the degree that we are, that I am trying to make you do it. There are very few people on this planet involved with it. It's not either right or wrong. There are people involved in activities in other parts of the world on different levels appropriate to them. But the kind of beliefs that many of you had, that this is a worldwide organization and that every great mystic and guru you ever heard of is still alive, all the ones in this part of the world, all the ones in the United States, that we're all in some kind of mystical, if not literal communication, and it's all working to some great plan to serve the gods. There are very few people involved, even to the degree that you are, those of you that think that you're just hangers-on. So the belief that there is an absolute mystical and personal basis that life has picked me out, it may even make a martyr of me. I've really enjoyed being involved with this. I've gotten a lot out of it. I couldn't change, I couldn't leave it. It means the world to me. And yet life, in a sense, just seems to start picking on me. I believe making these kind of supreme mystical efforts perhaps has brought me to life's attention, to the forces' attention. They begin to think, what kind of little smart ass are you? You can't get by with this. There is validity to that. So what? Well, let me take you beyond that kind of verbal definition and try and get you to see again until you can see it, and then we don't have to talk about it. How there is almost no room for anyone to maneuver. Life, for its own needs, has arranged things that everybody has almost no room to maneuver. That ideas about personal change, it's charitable to say that they're moot. And yet, life makes everybody, the crudest all the way to you, to people involved with this, it makes everyone dissatisfied with their plight, with life. It makes everyone dissatisfied with the I of the equation. It makes everyone dissatisfied with the not I of the equation. Hence, nobody's satisfied with everything. Life has made things that way on this level, and then made it to where there's almost no room to change what's going on. So there you are. That, believe it or not, can be one of the first stages of freedom. Because remember, I'm saying that this is the way it appears. I'm not saying it's the way it is. Now, I'm saying it's the way it is for ordinary people. But notice the beauty of this, as something that you, even if you don't see it, that you accept that thus far, I seem to be having a real positive and some kind of truthful effect. Even if you don't understand what I'm saying, just accept this verbally for a second as a kind of beautiful puzzle. That with ordinary people, there's no room to maneuver. There's some there, but they don't use it. If you want to really get technical, and why not? Doesn't cost them more to be technical, except it's more confusing. To you, not to me. So ordinary people got no room to maneuver. They don't use it. But it's ordinary people who believe that they're by and large free. Then you move along this for a certain path, to a certain place along this path, and it begins to strike you more and more that what I've been saying about almost no room to maneuver is true. It's not a theory. Forget predestination. Forget the mechanical nature of life. There's just almost no room to maneuver. And so you begin to see that. And what I'm telling you is, for the first time, you begin to have a certain kind of freedom. Look at the beautiful strangeness of this situation. So then you begin to see that all of us, me and everybody else, this is the first stage of you seeing it, and that's you talking, that me and everybody else has almost no room to maneuver. In other words, you begin to see that things are almost trapped within a vitas machina, that there is almost no question about change and freedom, and that you then have the first real taste of freedom, and then everybody else believes otherwise, and they don't. It was a long way to get to that. I probably lost a lot of you. Is that not? It is. It really is. It's better than any sermon. It's better than any book you ever read. Do not take these feelings personally. Do not believe because you are mistaken. There's validity to it, but you're mistaken to believe that life has singled you out, or that now you took up with this, and maybe I am in some way, not in a negative way, but what this is about is always in some way conflicting with life, and life is prone to want to step on it and squash it and mash it out. There's validity to that. But notice this, it never gets big enough to overthrow life. Your liver does not turn on you enough to kill you. That's a bad example, isn't it? Because it... Damn, that does happen. Well, wait a minute. We're going to have to revise all these theories. Just a joke. Just a joke. It is a mistake for people involved with this to hear anything, to take any of that personally, that life is going to pick you out and strangle you, to mash you down because you're trying to go against the flow. There is validity to it, but there is no importance to it. And life is not personally selecting you, me, because if it was, I'd be in graver danger than you are. There is validity to that feeling. There is validity to the fact that life is not going to let things arise out of the ordinary so much to trip itself. That's true. But life made you come here. Life told me this. Do not take it personally. Do not expect something worse is going to happen. Do not expect you're going to become a martyr to this. Martyrs are people who do not understand. Martyrs are people who do not like what was going on. They're needed by life. But this does not truly produce martyrs. If it produced martyrs, that would have chillins. So do not expect it's going to get worse, and the feelings that, as I said, almost everyone has some variation of this, of the sensation that I am getting somewhere, but at the same time life is making it harder for me. It's not making it harder for you, it's you're beginning to see more. You're beginning to see that there's almost no room to maneuver. Almost none. That's all that's happening. You're not irritating life so much. You're not becoming so extraordinary that you're now becoming an itch to life. If I said if that's going to happen, you got to face the mathematical fact that if that were true, it'd get me before it would you, because you're getting all this from me. Another joke. So you don't have to worry if it's going to do that, it's going to get me, and then you can all run for it. You can all holler, hey, I didn't know him, I just got here. It is not that life is making it worse. Do not expect things to get worse. Do not take it as being some kind of mystical message to you. Things are not changing. The only thing that's changing is your perception. You're beginning to see that there is almost no room to maneuver in this life. Almost none, and I never saw it. I read about it. I've heard him talk about it in certain ways. And I knew, well, it's got to be more allegorical than literal. Tut, tut, nay, nay, and... But at least when you begin to see that, trust me, you're getting somewhere. And it will not give you the blues. I think that's enough. I'll bring some more next week unless I change my mind. Here's one I've been carrying for couple of months. Boy, I like it. I shouldn't read it to you. Carried it months, at least. Circle the good part. The part I was going to use. Sometimes if I bring them up here several weeks and I don't use them, I just throw them away. Or maybe I send them back to whoever wrote it and I'll write a little note if I decide for whatever reason that I don't use it here. But this one I just can't turn loose. I hadn't sent it back, I hadn't thrown it away. How about that build up? Then what if next week, if right now I use it? And everybody goes, well, hey, I don't see the importance of it. That's the way life is. You pay your money and you go to see the group and you had their record, and in person, they suck. Well, they're a disappointment. How about you people on tape? You like this, sing it on TV, thousands of miles away. You keep waiting for me to show up. What if I show up in person? And nowadays, I'm probably not as impressive in person as I am on that little box, and I'm actually on TV or I'm on a tape. You can sit there and turn it on, and that's me coming from 1,000 miles away, coming to that little box on that screen. The tape comes in the mail, and you people put it on and get together. Wouldn't it be great to see me? What if I show up in person and I'm not near as impressive? Think about that. Think about the molecular effect of that cathode ray tube that's striking your eyeballs. Now show up in person and you got to put up with it. You don't know what's going to happen. On these tapes you see them week after week and you know it's going to run, whatever they run. A certain length of time, and it gets over and everybody can leave. What if I'm there in person? What if I got a hand in person? What if in some way I can control myself as long as the camera's on? I got there to see you people in California or New York in person, and it turns out that it just goes on and on for several hours, and I begin to take off my clothes, and I begin to sweat bullets, and blood begins to come out of my temples, my eyes begin to flash. This is probably much safer. Just also note, all the spiritual heroes everybody has, notice this, they're always dead. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient? Of course, I guess it's convenient for some more than others, you know, for instance, those what are dead. All systems go, all video systems. I've got a task for you people that's appropriate, that is, those who have been there for at least 3 months. I want you, as soon as you hear this tape, whenever it is, your next off day, you people, you know, Friday, Saturday, but your next off day, immediately, from the time you get up in the morning until the time you go to bed at night, I'm very serious, and I mean this literally. I want you to smile. I don't care if you're alone at home, if you're driving down the freeway. I don't care who you're around. Do not let your imaginary voices buy you any trouble. That I can't do this, there are going to be situations I'll be in. Forget it. And you will have helped cheat me from passing on what I can if you do not do this all day. I'm not trying to produce any mechanical guilt. You got enough of that, but I am pointing this out to tell you that it is serious. You get more out of it if you faithfully attempt to do it all day. Just start off, I don't care how fake and how false it feels. That's not the point. It's just all day, every second. As soon as you go to bed that night, as soon as you lay down and turn out the lights, you can stop it, even before you go to sleep. But as soon as you get up, whatever day it is you're going to do it, as soon as you get up in the morning, as soon as you awaken, all day, and keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open at the ordinary binary situations. Keep your eyes open about what seems to be I in the equation and what seems to be not I. I give you my guarantee, nothing bad will befall you. And you will not die of humiliation. And people who smile all the time anyway will not notice it. Nothing amiss will happen if you do it all day and keep your eyes open. See what there is to be seen once you have affected the ordinary situation.